So my name is Denise, and you are probably here because you're interested in learning about Ireland. Some of you are probably tired of the grind and ready to bump up your career. And there's probably some of you that are like, get me the hell out of Dodge. I want to live internationally. I want to be able to also travel to Europe. So if this is you, welcome. You're in the right place. My job is to make this as engaging and interesting as possible. And you're going to walk away with a ton of information. So please have your telephone nearby. You're going to want to take some pics along the way. And if you haven't done so yet, grab your favorite beverage, kick back. I think you're going to enjoy this. So welcome. And while we're waiting for folks to jump on, I just would like to know who you are. So are you a student, a career changer, somebody who's already been in the field, you're just tired of the grind? Or are you an IEC, an independent educational consultant, or something else, a parent? Use the chat and put it to everybody so everyone can see. We're just trying to get a sense of who's in the room right now. And yeah, set it to everyone as well. And then the other question I have for you is to find out what you want to study. So even if you don't know, you can just put don't know. I'm still exploring. The reason I'm asking this is so we have some awesome guest panelists today, and they're going to be able to speak to their experience. And so we can sort of see where those line up. So again, put it in the chat for everybody to see. Masters in Human Rights, love it. International relations. So yeah, we have somebody on the call right now for international relations, which Patrick, you can also probably speak to the human rights part. Wow, computational linguistics. Good job, Taylor. Computer science. All right, awesome. All right, so we've got a whole range of things in here. All right, I love it because I really feel like my job is to inspire you, make sure you have the information because I really want you to move your life forward. And I really want you to take this information and feel like you know what those next steps are. Oh, and Ben is sports and exercise and nutrition. Awesome. All right, let's get going. Oh, so let me do a quick introduction. Some of you know me, some of you may not know me. I'm Denise Cope. I'm president of Affordable Degrees Abroad. And I lived abroad for about 6 years through a variety of countries, France, Turkey, Japan, and Morocco, and have a real fondness for, I'd say, yeah, living abroad and learning about other cultures. And so this is something that I'm passionate about and really hope to give this experience to you as well. I also worked 20 years in higher education. And honestly, one of the reasons I left US higher education is because I was so concerned about the increasing cost of US higher ed. And I really felt like there was a better way to do this. And so my mission is, and the next slide, is to be a guide. And so there are so many options for you to do your degree abroad. And so how do you sort through them? How do you know what you're doing is going to be a good choice? And so that's what I'm up to. So I want to introduce, we have some really awesome folks on the call today. We have Sarah Dart. She works for education in Ireland. Sarah, do you want to do a quick shout out and tell everybody who you are?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Dart. I'm the Vice President for Education Ireland based in Boston. And I support all of the Irish colleges and universities in their work with students from the US.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. And then we also have 3 student panelists as well. We have Patrick, Kayla, and Walker. And Patrick, do you want to say a few words about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks for attending tonight. My name is Patrick Smith. I'm based in Boston, but I'm from St. Louis, Missouri originally. I did the master's in international relations from UCD, and I graduated in 2016. And I liked my UCD experience so much that I'm working for them now. So I'm based in Boston again, working in their US international recruitment team. So happy to answer a few more of your questions tonight and just kind of talk about what it's like studying in Ireland.
Awesome, thanks. And we also have Kayla here, and Kayla is joining us en route. So thanks for showing up. Kayla, did you want to say a couple words?
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you for having me. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me,
Yeah,
Denise?
yeah.
Perfect. I'm no longer en route. I'm now at my brother's house, so no longer on the ferry. Um, it's so nice to be able to be here and be a panelist for this wonderful opportunity. I'm so excited to talk to all of you. My name is Kayla Provost, and I'm based in Boston, but absolutely fell in love with Ireland during a study abroad experience and decided to go back for my master's degree. I graduated from the University of Limerick in Limerick, Ireland in their 2011-2012 year with a Master of Arts degree in English. Fell in love with the country even more so and ended up working for an Irish university for 6 years before settling down in Boston at Suffolk University. So excited to answer any of your questions. And yeah, just really excited to be here. Thanks, Denise.
Great, thanks, Kayla. And for full disclosure, it says Maggie on her Zoom screen. It's Kayla, not Maggie, just to clarify. And Walker, introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, howdy folks. Walker McAndrew. I also studied at the University of Limerick. I fell in love from a study abroad program that I went to in 2016. Came back for my Master's of Science in Work and Organizational Behavior, which in the US it's normally called IO Psychology or Industrial and Organizational Psychology. And got back to the States. I worked at the University of Limerick as a GTA, which is like a kind of like a little guest lecturer for their tutorials. And now I'm in tech working as a senior manager for a startup for enablement, learning and development. And I'm super excited to talk to y'all about my time and about the what you can do afterwards with the degree and stuff like that. So thanks, Denise.
Great, thanks. So what we're up to today, we're going to talk about the value of a degree abroad, like why should you do this in the first place? We're going to have an overview of some Irish universities, also looking at housing, and talk about financial aid. This comes up all the time. How do I finance this thing? So we'll walk through that. You're going to hear all throughout, you're going to hear from our student panelist, and I'm going to leave you with some clear next steps so you know what you should be doing to make your dream a reality. So let's get going. So one of the questions I always get is it really cheaper to do my degree abroad versus the United States? Now, the answer is it depends. You can still find good deals in the United States. And but I would say as a general rule of thumb, it is cheaper to do your degree abroad. And we'll look at some particular facts and figures, but it could be anywhere from like Germany is free to, I don't know, like UK, particularly in England, can be like 30,000 a year. So there's a whole range in here. We'll get into Ireland, but Ireland, I'd say, gives really good value for the money. So the second question I always get is this a real degree? And how do I know? Right? So it's, I'd say, hard for a lot of US students because we're like, I don't know what this means. First off, throw away US News and World reports. It's garbage. So I want to redirect you to two other resources that you can use to check out if a university is, validated with rankings. So these are QS, and the other one is called Times Higher Education Rankings. So these are global rankings, and then not only does it include abroad universities, it includes US universities too. So you can sort of see how everything is ranked. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to study at an industry accredited institution. All right, what does this mean? So every industry is slightly different and they'll have their own industry accreditations. So business programs will tend to have things like AACSB or EQUIS. Those are on the business side of the house. If you're an engineering student, it'll be something like ABET. So you're going to start to look for some industry accreditations. And then you can sort of tease out, oh, okay, now I see how I can validate that this is the real deal. You can also ask me. Another reason I think it's so important to do a degree abroad is you develop those global skills and network, and study abroad is built in. And the story I like to tell here is I'm friends with the hiring manager at a very large aerospace firm that is based here in Denver. And he's told me that he likes to hire graduates who've graduated from abroad institutions, because he knows that not only will you have the skill set of that particular field, you will have the global skills to do some global jobs from day one, and you won't have to be trained on that. So I think that that's an important selling point. And finally, a lot of countries offer something, they're called post-study work visas. So these are work visas that are built in to your degree. Once you finish your degree, you're given the paperwork in order to work in that country afterwards. So for example, in the UK and Ireland, that's 2 years. New Zealand is 3 years. Let's see, I'm missing a few countries out there. Some are 6 months. But for Ireland, it's 2 years. So you get that paperwork for 2 years. You still have to hustle and get the job, but it at least gives you the paperwork in order to sell yourself. All right, so let's take a look at all of the universities in Ireland, and there's a lot of them. So this graphic is just going to give you a big overview. So the dark green on the slide, where most of these universities are, this is Ireland itself, that's part of the EU. The top part here, where it's lighter green, that's Northern Ireland, and that's part of the UK. So, but I want to include all of these so you can see all of the opportunities. So up at the top, so this is in the UK, is Belfast, so Queen's University of Belfast. Now, Dublin has a lot of institutions. And Patrick, who works and went to UCD, so University College Dublin, that's where that's located. And then we'll jump down to Maynooth. That's a little bit further south. We have Maynooth University. And then to the left is Galway on the west side. And there's National University of Ireland in Galway. And then Limerick Shannon area has a lot. So we've got both Walker and Kayla from the University of Limerick. And then there's others also in Limerick and Shannon. So Mary Immaculate, Limerick Institution of Tech, Shannon College of Hotel Management. And then finally, down in the south, we've got Cork, so University College Cork as well. So there are a lot of options. We'll give you a quick overview of everything here to choose from and how to get to know these institutions more. Okay, so why Ireland in the first place? One thing, I mean, obviously it's in English. The second thing is there are a lot of highly desired qualifications. Remember how we talked about QS and Times Higher Ed? So these are the worldwide rankings. So let me just give you a quick sense of a few universities. I'm gonna benchmark it. I'm gonna use QS. We'll benchmark it. So Tufts, as you all know, is in the States. It's ranked 275. So remember that. UCD, that is 175. Trinity, 101. Cork, 298. And Limerick is 501. And that's still a really good ranking. The university I used to work at in the States was ranked 751. So this is still a really, really good ranking. Some other reasons to go to Ireland: warm welcome of a student country. And there's also practical learning and network building. This is actually one of my biggest selling points, I think, for Ireland. I think Ireland rocks building in practical experience and industry related experiences in order to grow your career and have high employability rates. And so if you are interested in building your career and making some industry connections, Ireland should be at the top of your list. And then we already talked about the work visa. There's a 2-year work visa as well. So those are some of the highlights. Patrick, Walker, and Kayla, do you guys have any comments either on any of these bullets in your experience?
The specifically the point about high employability rates in my master's for work and organizational behavior, it was it was like 92% within 3 months had a job outside of the master's program. So we did a lot of things. I got to be on a cool project in Ireland with Treaty City Brewing, which is they make beer in University of Limerick, and we got to do a task analysis on exactly what their brewers do to make their beer. And that actually is what my thesis was on: AI, like artificial intelligence. And what sold me to my first employer outside of my master's was my project on how to make beer. So that's just a little tidbit there for me.
Yeah, and I think what really stood out to me was the practical learning element. And the degree that I ended up enrolling in had an internship option during the summer trimester. So you could take what you were learning during the first 2 trimesters and really put it into action. And I think for a 1-year course, it really kind of ticked all the boxes in terms of real focused, intense academic component to the degree, but then also that chance to get out in the real world, start meeting professionals, start meeting people that are interested in what you've been learning, so that you're actually putting into practice what you've been studying for the past year.
I'd second what Patrick just mentioned about the qualifications and just how specific the programs are. Just to segue briefly back into the QS rankings and everything, I'd highly advise all of you, if you're looking, besides just looking at the university rankings, look at the program rankings within the university, because a lot of our universities have really exceptional program rankings individually too. So it's not always just about the university ranking, it's also about the program within the university. And secondly, I mean, I just felt so welcome on campus. And I felt as though my learning went beyond the classroom. For example, when I was in a poetry class for my master's in English program, I had the opportunity to actually play Irish music and learn poetry from late Irish poet from Northern Ireland, Kieran Carson. So just having experiences like that and having the connections to the greater Irish culture beyond the university was just something that I couldn't get anywhere else.
That's awesome. And Walker and Patrick, do you have any comments on that? I know that Ireland is a student country. It has a young vibe. Like, how was it for you showing up there and making connections, making friends?
On my end, it was phenomenal. I play rugby still to this day, and part of what drew me to Ireland in the first place was a rugby culture. So I played a bunch of rugby while I was over there for the university and for some men's clubs out there, and also was very quickly told about the Outdoor Pursuits Club and the climbing club out there, which I think the Outdoor Pursuits Club is one of the largest clubs out of all the universities in Ireland, is what I've heard, for international students. So I still have friends that I talk to this day, and it's been since my study abroad, it's been 5 years. So yeah, the warmest welcome I've had at any university I've been to, for sure.
Absolutely, same here. I was pretty nervous moving over. I moved over on my own, didn't really know a whole lot of people, and UCD is a pretty large campus, around 30,000 people altogether. So was a little unsure of what those first few weeks would be like, but I think something that really helped was that we also have a lot of international students, and so it was kind of nice those first few weeks to look around campus and see people that were also, looking a little bewildered and saying, "Hey, I need to make friends. I need to meet people. Let's go to the cafe together. Let's go to the freshers tent together and sign up for different clubs and societies." And so I think there's so many young people, there's so many international students that are all looking to get involved, looking to meet people. So never really felt like an outsider at all, which I thought was really nice. And then just the whole kind of student scene on campus was great. Over 200 different clubs and societies. So I always tell people it's kind of hard to not get involved over in Ireland because there's just always something going on. So while I was nervous for the first 2 or 3 days, I kind of got over that pretty quickly, got involved, and then I was the president of the dance society when I was over on campus in UCD. So that was another great way, kind of like Walker was saying, just get involved, network building, but just have a lot of fun along the way.
Great. Thank you.
Hey Denise, there was something else I wanted to hit on that Kayla brought up. Looking at the program rankings is huge, and also just looking at if you're planning on doing a specific program, looking at the instructors specifically was something that I did, and found out that I had been reading research papers by an individual that and throughout my undergrad who ended up being a teacher at the University of Limerick for my master's was a huge selling point for me. So definitely take a peek at that too.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on what Walker's saying. So if you end up applying to a program and you notice that you really resonate with a certain professor, be sure to include that in your statement of purpose, because I think it really demonstrates your excitement for the program and how you're connected. All right, let's talk a little FAQs as it relates to Ireland. So many of you are probably wondering, all right, how much does it cost and how do I finance this? So tuition is going to have a range in here, but it tends to be 14,000 to 23,000 a year. Some specialty programs may be more. And cost of living. So obviously Limerick is going to be more affordable than Dublin. Dublin's expensive, but you could get by with 10,000 to 15,000 a year. Obviously you can spend more and have like really fancy accommodations. Now, how are you going to finance it? So a few things to note. There are around 400 institutions internationally that you can apply with FAFSA and use loans. It doesn't work for grants, but it will work for loans. And you can also use, those same institutions will also use 529 plans. So these are college savings plans. And I think all of the institutions, right, Sarah, everything is FAFSA approved. There aren't any exceptions out there?
All of the universities are FAFSA.
All the universities. Okay, thanks. Also, if you need, I usually start with FAFSA, but if you need extra monies, there are Sallie Mae student loans, and all of these institutions, same institutions, are also approved for that. And some of you will have GI Bill monies available. And many of the institutions in Ireland do, not all of them do. There's something called a Weems database. You can check that, or just ask the institution to find out. What I have discovered is the Weems database is not always up to date, so be sure to check with the institution. Now, the benefit of doing a degree abroad, many of these programs are 12 months long, so it's 1 year. So you're not paying for multiple years, unless you're doing a science program. Usually the sciences are going to be 2 years for a master's. But I know all of the programs, Walker, Patrick, and Kayla did theirs, and they were all 12-month master's programs. So that just also helps with cost savings in addition to time savings. And there's also scholarships available. This question always comes up. Sarah, did you want to do a little plug about the scholarships for Ireland?
Yeah, so one of the major ones available to international students are called the Government of Ireland scholarships. The application opens in late January, early February, and closes maybe about 6 or 8 weeks later. But this is a full fee waiver, in addition to a 10,000 euro stipend that can be used for housing, travel, living expenses, all sorts of things. So every year, a number of students from the US receive these scholarships. So definitely would encourage you to apply for this. The one thing to know is that you do need to have already applied to your master's program in Ireland to apply for this scholarship. There are also a lot of scholarships available from the individual institutions for international students. Some will be more kind of broadly for international students. Some are more specific. Smurfit, which is the business school at UCD, specifically has a diversity and inclusion scholarship. So it isn't just entirely general scholarships. There's a lot of opportunities out there, and those will be on each of the institution's international student websites.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, and I do encourage you to check out, like, there are scholarships, so make sure for each institution, you're looking at their scholarship pages and ask the international officer for that institution. I really just want to give you a sense. I know we have a lot of people. We had some health science folks. There was computer science, business, international studies. So I really want to give you a sense of different strengths within institutions. And this is not comprehensive by any means, but there are so many program opportunities for every institution. I'm going to explain in a little bit, because this can probably feel daunting looking at this list of like, how do I even know where to start? So one of the things I want to point out, and this will be on the next slide, is there is a virtual grad school fair coming up. So you may want to reserve this on your calendar, and I know Sarah's going to put it in the chat on Saturday, November 13th from 1 to 5 p.m. Eastern. And so this is an opportunity to actually get to meet the institutions, talk about programs, talk about what you're interested in, and move forward. And so you just have a lot more information about these institutions. So you're not like, I don't know what my next step is. So just to clarify, this is your next step. Be sure to copy that from the chat box and to register for the fair, because I think this will give you a lot of very specific information in regards to your particular program interest. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about housing. There can be housing on campus for master's students. There's also off-campus housing opportunities. But I wanted to hear from Walker, Patrick, and Kayla, just to have a sense of like, where did you end up? How did you find it? And any advice or tips in regards to finding housing?
Yeah, so for the University of Limerick, they offer a grad school or grad student accommodations. So if you're looking for anything, as soon as you get accepted, they give you a big resource package and kind of tell you what to expect and where you can sign up to do all that. I actually lived off of campus, right above the Dunn's, which is a grocery store in Ireland, in downtown Limerick, and I biked to school. I found it through like their version of Craigslist. I was just looking online, and I brought my girlfriend at the time, who's now my fiance, and our dog with us from the States. So we ended up just happening into an apartment. But definitely do your research beforehand. We really lucked out. If you can do it ahead of time, if you're planning to live off a campus, do that. But the Irish really like to meet folks before they rent out stuff to them. So I would highly suggest being on campus, especially if it's your first time. It'll get you ingratiated with the culture a lot faster and kind of force you out of your comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah, and I lived off campus, for Irish American guy named Patrick. I have pretty bad luck. So UCD does like a graduate housing lottery system. So it's a little bit more limited on campus for grad students. So my lottery number was through the roof. So I just kind of knew I wasn't going to be living on campus. So like Walker was saying, always helps to get there a little bit earlier so you can meet the landlords, actually see everything in person. But I lived right by Croke Park, which is where they do all the Gaelic football and hurling, but also the concerts too. So I got to hear a free Beyonce concert from my back garden, which was pretty nice. And I think one thing too, just to keep in mind, is obviously depending on the program, but it's not like you're going to be in class 9 to 5 every single day. And that was something that was a huge change for me from undergrad. So there was a lot of time that was spent either doing kind of private, independent study or group work outside of the classroom. So the fact that I was living a little bit further away from campus wasn't really that big of a deal to me because, like I said, it's not like you're there 24/7 in the classroom. There's a lot of really, good bus links, good public transit in Dublin. So it was easy to get to campus, but I did have a little bit more flexibility in terms of, the times that I needed to be on campus for class.
Great, thanks. Kayla?
Yeah, so I was actually really lucky. And again, when I went to school, this was about a decade ago, but I came to realize that the place that I had lived when I studied abroad, Capavilla Village, which is actually across the bridge from University of Limerick's main campus, was allowing graduate students to live there as well. So I ended up living in Capavilla Village on campus with a few students who were doing masters in speech pathology, which was great. And I was really close to the Irish World Academy of Music and Dance, so I was able to do some choir stuff in there as well. And it was just about I walk pretty quickly. I'm a city walker, so it was about a 20 minute walk across the beautiful living bridge that lights up at night to and from class. It was really affordable. I was actually able to pay for a portion of it with my AmeriCorps stipend because I did a year of AmeriCorps volunteer work before going back to school. So they were really, really flexible with me, and they made it certainly worth my while. My flatmates were wonderful, and I made a lot of really good friends within the complex as well. So absolutely would have made no changes. And I'm glad to hear that Walker had a good experience off campus, because you get to hear with good experiences both on and off.
Great, thanks. And I will say, I have a friend who moved to Ireland and with her 2 dogs as well. So it must not be that hard to move dogs, is what I'm learning right now. So.
It was, yeah. Well, I will say, if you do have any pets or anything like that, it's way, way easier to bring them back to the States than it is to bring them over to Ireland. Ireland has never had a case of the rabies. So they take it, yeah, weird little fact there, but they take it very seriously. So you have to have all of your shot records and stuff like that good to go.
Got it. All right, thank you. All right, I want to also talk about supports for students. In the States, we have a lot of sort of these offices that help us along the way. And what's great about Ireland is you'll see a lot of these very same offices mirrored abroad. And so the 2 I'm going to highlight here are the Disability Services and Career Development. So with disability services, you should know that sort of just like you would in the States, there's a disability service office, and you would sort of walk through their process in order to get an accommodation. Now, it may not be the exact same accommodation that you would receive in the United States, because now you are subject to the laws and policies and regulations of Ireland versus the US. But I will say, as a general rule of thumb, it's going to be comparable. It might not be the same, but it will be comparable. And it is a student-driven process, so you're going to just have to make sure you're advocating for yourself, finding out how to move that process forward, and working with the office as well as professors as needed. But it exists, so just know that. The other one is just career development. We talked about this briefly already, but one thing I really admire about Irish institutions is an emphasis on making sure you have not only the resources, but the networking to move your career forward. And I appreciate it because for me, I'm a real practical learner. While I enjoy theory, and I also like to make sure that I at the end of the day, I'm going to have a job. And so that for me becomes really important. And if that is important to you, I think Ireland should be considered on your list. I think as a country, it does really, really well and really helps support students. And then in addition, you've got that 2-year work visa. Patrick, Kayla, and Walker, any comments on any of the supports and anything you received from Limerick or UCD?
Walker, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go?
Oh, go for it, Kayla. You can
Okay. So I will say, Denise, I'm glad that you said it was very, very student driven. I think it does take, with any of these services, being proactive and making sure that you're advocating yourself for yourself is so important. But I will say at UL, I had a major family loss when I was in graduate school, and I availed of the counseling services there, and they were stellar. It was something that I had to seek out myself, but just knowing that I had that support was hugely beneficial for me, and it helped me get through the trials and then get on with my program. So it is available there. You just do have to seek it out yourself.
Yeah, I would say for career development, specifically at UL, they did a phenomenal job. They do for any type of business degree. We had a job fair complete with an assessment center, mock interviews, public speaking classes. You were graded by folks from big five companies like Deloitte, KPMG, just all sorts of companies would come in and kind of vet you. And at the end of it, you could get a legitimate job offer from some of these places, or they would say, you know, talk to us when your program's over, or send us your dissertation or something like that. So still have connections that I talk with from that career fair and from that assessment center. In terms of the student health, that was massive as well. Being an American, it can be kind of nerve wracking going in as a student, not knowing if you're insured or what your insurance is going to cover and stuff like that abroad. It can be a little bit different of a story. So utilized student health a couple of times while I was over at UL, and was shocked at how much I would have spent back in the US versus how much I spent over in Ireland specifically.
Yeah, and just one kind of final thing. It's not something that I really thought of beforehand, but just using the Career Center in UCD's campus, I think one thing that kind of stood out to me was, you know, I walked in for kind of my initial, you know, resume review session or CV review session, and they said, "Oh my gosh, this looks so American." So just kind of those, you know, little nuances of, you know, Europeanizing your applications, your CV, your resume, so that if you do decide to stay in Ireland, or maybe go further afield in the rest of Europe, it really helps to have those kind of culturally tuned in career supports on campus that can, you know, really let you know what it is that employers are looking for, and how to make yourself, you know, obviously stand out, but also fit in the right circumstances when applying for jobs too.
Mhm. Great. Those are all great stories. Great. Thanks. So, next, really, this is a time for you as participants to ask questions. I have some questions teed up too, in case we need a little lubrication. But if you have a question, pop it into the Q&A. We generally are going to use the chat for sharing resources or for lifting each other up. But if you have a particular question for any of our panelists, please pop it into the Q&A. And I'll give you guys a minute to think about it. While you all are popping your questions in there, I just want to hear from each panelist. What drew you to your master's program? Like were you clear, like this is the one for me, or how did that process happen for you?
Sure. Or
Yeah, go
Kayla,
for
do
it,
you want to go
Patrick.
first? I don't
I
know. Okay.
noticed. Yeah, go for it.
Sure. So I forgot to mention it. You know, much like Walker and Kayla, I did a study abroad year. I was also in Limerick, but I was at a smaller college in Limerick called Mary Immaculate College, and I think that year really sold the Irish education experience to me. Just feeling like a local, feeling warm, or that kind of warm reception. I think really drew me back. I knew I wanted to do something in international education, and was thinking that international relations was probably a good route to pursue that in. And naturally was looking at a capital city with lots of different, you know, kind of international connections available. But something that made UCD stand out, in particular, the Masters in International Relations, was the internship component. And looking at a few other schools that had similar programs just without that internship option. And like I was mentioning before, just the ability to take what you're learning, put it into practice, and also meet people, network, and connect with like-minded individuals. That was really something that I was looking forward to And I think that's why I'm here today. So definitely made the right choice.
So for me, I mean, as I'm sure you can all imagine, there are countless opportunities for masters in English programs all around the world. But I was drawn to Ireland because of the phenomenal Irish writers and poets, some of the most beloved writers of our time and before our time are from Ireland. It's a hub of creativity. But beyond that, I in an English program, I didn't want to be placed in a box. So I didn't want an English program focusing on modernism or an English program focusing on writing in theater, for example. I wanted a broad spectrum English program I could build something myself, and that's really what University of Limerick offered for me. So I was able to write my dissertation using feminist theory and talking about the intellectual girl as a character type in young adult fiction and how the use of that character in recent novels has allowed for a break in stereotypical gender roles. So like I was able to do this very specific dissertation, build it myself by collecting a number of really interesting classes that were offered at UL. So I I have no regrets whatsoever. I absolutely loved my time there. So fell in love with Ireland in study abroad, but decided to stay because of the wonderful academic endeavors I could pursue there.
Yeah, and for mine, it's a kind of similar story. But I ended up just looking at universities to go to for my master's. I didn't even think about my study abroad as like a potential option for it. Uh, as I was going through the list of places that would accept my GRE scores, I was looking at tuition prices. I was also I have the GI Bill, so I was looking at universities that would accept that with my degree field that I was looking into, and University of Limerick just happened to pop up on one of the lists that I was looking at, and I was like, oh my gosh, I know one of the people who's still working there for international students. So I ended up looking or talking to that person and asking them about the program. I qualified for scholarships. I put it in the chat earlier, but a similar program in the U.S. would have been $60,000 over 2 years in just tuition alone, and the program at UL was 12K in tuition for 1 year after scholarship. So saved around $50,000, and to me that was a no-brainer. And I get to go back to a place that I studied abroad at and loved. So I also looked up again one of the professors that was going to be teaching in the program. His name's Donald Truxillo, and I immediately was like, yeah, this is a program for me. But to Sarah's point in the chat as well, I found out that they don't just focus on theory at Irish universities. They give you a little bit of theory, and then they give you the practical application piece, especially for the business and science courses. So that was a huge selling point for me because I didn't want to go and pursue a PhD or get stuck in academia from my perspective.
Yeah, awesome. So we have a question from Taylor. Taylor wants to know, were you able to find jobs in Ireland post-grad? I know you mentioned the work visa. But is it hard to find something? So I think the question, I'd ask would be, how would a student go about finding a job in Ireland post study? What would that process look like? And I'm sure it depends on which field you're in regards to that level of support and the types of jobs available. But do any of you have any anecdotes or experience of how to find a job in Ireland?
Yeah, I feel Patrick, you've got a job over there right now, but I can give a business answer, or from a business school. I was saying earlier we did those assessment centers, so that was a very realistic experience where they got to interview and I got to be forthright with people and say, I want to work here afterwards. The reason I'm not over there right now, working at one of the companies that I interviewed with, is because my fiance, or my girlfriend at the time, could not get a visa over there. So it made it a little bit tougher. But you can go through the entire interview process, and they give you a type of visa while you're over there. And I'm sure we have links out to it and stuff like that. But they give you a type of visa that you're eligible to work there for. I believe it's 2 or 3 years. It's not hard to do. You can do it with the help of any university official while you're over there, and they'll kind of walk you through the process and give you paperwork and folders for things to complete. So not hard at all. If you want to do it, it's definitely you're able to. And there's a little bit harder path to citizenship from that as well, if that's something you're interested in too.
Yeah, I think one thing that kind of caught me off guard was the kind of overall timeline of things. So, if it's a 1 year course, you don't have the most amount of time to settle in, and um, you really should be thinking about the careers aspect and what you want to do with your degree afterwards, once you're on campus, because it really does fly by. For better or for worse, it is a pretty accelerated program. So I remember, our course starts the second week of September, and this was the kind of second or third week of October, and our lecturers are already talking about what the summer internship process is like, what the careers process is like. Are you interviewing, or are you emailing potential employers? Are you going to interviews? It's like, whoa, I just got here. But I think that's definitely a benefit of the fact that you have a lot of support from the lecturers as well, and your professors are there to not only help you in your academics, but also get you to where you need to be. So while it is a pretty accelerated timeline overall, it always seems to work out in the end. And I think it's kind of one last thing to hit on is just how supportive the Irish government has been for international students. So when I was over there, and I don't know if Walker, when you were over there, it was just a 1 year graduate stay back visa. So now they've really tried to make it easier for students to stay and work, and now it's up to 2 years. So there's a lot of support from the government, from industry, from employers that are saying, we want more international students to work here. So let's make it as easy of a transition as possible, which is really nice.
Yeah, I believe it's 2 years now, and they can even sign you on. Your employer can choose to sign you on for extra years and contract, and the government has made it easier to do that. So yeah, big plus one for the Irish government help there.
I'll second everything that's been said. I don't know that I can say it better than how Walker and Patrick have already put it, except to, again, really push what Patrick was saying with that it goes by very quickly with that 1 year. So you will feel like you're still on your toes when they start talking about summer internship opportunities and everything happening very early in the fall semester. Um, so again, I can't preach proactivity more than I do already, but just making sure that you're on top of things and that you're looking and seeking out opportunities, because like both Walker and Patrick said so astutely, the Irish government is so supportive of U.S. students coming over, and it's certainly something that we should embrace and take advantage of while we're over there.
Mhm. Yeah, so the resources exist, Taylor. It's, I think, making sure you're taking advantage of them, getting organized. I know when I was in grad school and I did mine in the States, but I felt like there's so much happening. It was hard for me to stay on top of that. So, but I think that's the benefit of Ireland. Like, they have the resources, there are the connections. You just have to make sure you're advocating for yourself and utilizing those resources. All right, we have time for about one more question, and then we'll wrap up with some next steps. Somebody is asking, what was culturally challenging about living or studying in Ireland, or what was easy to adjust to?
I can jump in
Um,
unless Patrick. Yeah, Patrick,
no,
you go. Are
Kayla, all you go.
you sure? Okay, so um, I'll say two things. One, I am thoroughly convinced, and I'm not just saying this is lip service, that my degree in Ireland made me a better version of myself. I feel like in Ireland they have a mentality that, yes, the academics are important. Yes, it's important to try hard, but it's not as much of um, a live to work mentality as we have here in the US. So I actually learned to be much more flexible, adaptable, independent while I was over there, while still embracing the idea that I was there for a cultural experience as well. So I think I became a much more flexible person while abroad, which was a huge upgrade it was like myself 2.0 after I left Ireland. Um, as far as something that a lot of students don't take into consideration when they look at cultural adjustment, I think that many students that I've spoken with as a university representative, um, and then students that I spoke with while as a student in Ireland, they kind of were under the misconception that because you're going to a country that English is a primarily spoken language there, that there's not going to be a huge cultural adjustment. But it can't, there's nothing further from the truth. So just because we speak the same language, that doesn't mean that everything's going to be the same. So I think going into it with an open mind and knowing that, yes, maybe we all speak English, but that being said, there's going to be some things socially that are different. There's going to be some things as far as like even, you know, how classes are set up, how professors teach that are going to be different than we're accustomed to here in the States. So just keeping an open mind about that and knowing that you are going into a different place culturally is super important when it comes to cultural adjustment.
All right. Well, that was an awesome answer. Thank you. Walker or Patrick, we only have time for one of you to answer. Do you have anything to add on that sort of a challenge, cultural challenge, or not?
Sure. And not so much a challenge, but just something that kind of took me by surprise and always kept me on my toes. But the Irish are so clued into what happens in the States. So chances are a lot of your classmates have either done a summer in Ireland or summer in the States or have family in the States. So I wasn't expecting to be asked about politics, sports, celebrities, what was going on in the States over in Ireland as much as I was. So I think just get ready to have your if it's a cab driver, a classmate, whoever you see on the street, if you're wearing anything that kind of identifies you as an American, people will come up to you and ask you questions about what's going on in the States or, and so just get ready for that because I definitely was not. So I had to make sure I was properly well read in what was going on back home, even though I was trying to immerse myself in what was going on in Dublin.
Awesome. Great. Thanks. So we have, I noticed one more question from Nadia. She asked for student parents, is there family housing options or subsidized childcare? I do not know the answer to this. Patrick or Sarah, do you know the answer?
Yeah, so I put something just as a response. I think it's typically just for PhD students that you're able to bring over family members. So whether that's spouse or any children you may have. And so I think because of that, a lot of the universities don't have the same availability for family housing or any kind of childcare for international students. I think a lot of that's, on a case by case basis as well. So I think the link that I put in there may have a few more kind of stipulations for what the family unification process could be like. But I think for just a normal master's program that's not a PhD, I think chances are it's probably not the easiest process to bring over family members with you.
Yeah. And I'll mention that, Nadia, if there are other countries too that can support that. So, um, reach out to me individually if you want to know if there's another country that might be a better fit in regards to family options. Sarah, did you have anything to add on to that?
No, Patrick's about covered it.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, I want to wrap up and make sure you've got all of your to-dos and you know what's next. So first off, how are you going to discover your top 5 programs? I'm going to give you some ideas. So you make sure you are registered for the Irish Masters Fair, step 1. Like hands down, that has to be your next thing. The other thing is to attend webinars. I usually host these once a month, so just an opportunity to learn, meet some institutions, and some students and see what it feels like. There are databases. You can search study.eu. QS and Times Higher Education also have databases, so those are some good ways to start. Also ask a guide, and I'm going to give you all the university contacts in a little bit, that's a great way to meet people. Make sure
Denise,
you're
can I-
researching. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to share one thing before jumping to the entry requirements, just a note about the fair. So even if you're not able to attend the fair while it's live on Saturday, if you register, you'll have access to the sort of university booths where all of their information is, including their contact info. And after the fair, we'll send links to all of the webinar videos that happen during the fair on topics like, financing your experience, internships, career services, things like that. So even if you may not attend in person, it's worth registering anyway to have those resources.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. And once you've identified those top programs, make sure you know what the entry requirements are. You don't want any heartbreak. So it's good just to know those up front, and then really do the math and understand finances. I mean, Walker gave a great example of what his cost. And I will say, as a general rule of thumb, it tends to be cheaper to do this abroad. So I think doing the research and finding out some real numbers can really help you. And couple other things as resources. Can you move on to the next slide, please? Just so you know, in case you are like, I feel so overwhelmed, I don't even know how to begin, I do offer a course, and I'm having a sale on it right now, and it's an 8-week online course, and it helps you identify your top programs abroad. So reach out to me. This is all of my contact information. I have, obviously, you can reach out via email. You can schedule a free call, or just at the very least join the Facebook group. It's just an awesome group of individuals that support each other. And we can ask questions and help. Make sure you're snapping some pics of this. These are all, we have 2 slides with all of our Irish institution contacts. So make sure you have all of this at your fingertips. This is the second one. And that's really it. So I really want to do a shout out to Walker, Patrick, and Kayla for showing up out of the goodness of your heart. So everybody, if you wouldn't mind putting some love in the chat for our student panelists, that would be awesome. And also for Sarah, thank you for showing up. I know it's your first day back to work after a bit of a holiday. So welcome back. And my name's Denise. So happy all of you joined us today. And you've got some resources, so make use of them. I hope this is inspiring and you can start to create your life. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, all. Later.
Thanks, Denise.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Denise.